Hey there, friends, and welcome to episode 339 of Just the Zoo of Us. This week, I am joined by a very special guest, science communicator and ambassador for wildlife, who is here to talk about the wise old wizards of Asian forests, binturongs. We discuss career paths for yappers, monkey software on weasel hardware, the chemical coincidence that makes binturongs smell a lot like snacks, the fulfilling experience of finally being considered one of the girls, and so much more. Just the Zoo of Us presents Binturongs with Rick Schwartz. Hi there, everybody. It's Ellen Weatherford with Just the Zoo of Us, your favorite animal review podcast. I am so excited to have a brand new friend on to talk to who, once again, this feels like one of those parasocial relationships. I feel like we have been following each other on social media and also have crossed boundaries of social media as we've migrated from platform to platform. I feel like you've been like a constant presence.
And I will say, too, from my end, it feels like we have so many crossover acquaintances and friends and coworkers.
I know, right?
It's such a fun little world in the wildlife education and zoo experience.
I feel like we keep like showing up at the same parties, but never actually getting to hang out. So we're actually getting to hang out now. I'm so excited. We have Rick Schwartz, a wildlife educator. You have also worked with some really incredible animals, including the one that we're going to talk about here today, which I'm very excited about. But before we talk about our cool animal, Rick, I would love to talk about you and how you got into the work that you do, educating people about wildlife, because it seems like such a dream job for a lot of people. I would love to know how you got into it.
I will say, sitting where I'm sitting now, in my 50s, looking back at all I have been able to do, it is still a dream. I still can't believe I've had the opportunities to work with different species I've worked with, meet the different people I've met, travel to different locations. But it all started with always, since I can remember, just enjoying the presence of animals. If I was at someone's house visiting, if they had a pet, I was most likely going to hang out with the pet. It wasn't that I was antisocial or didn't like people. It's just I like animals more.
Yeah. Yeah, you're at the party petting the cat. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to go find the cat, or I'm going to go out back and mess with the horse and hang out with the goats.
Okay, you go to very different parties than I do. If there's horses at your parties.
Well, I grew up in a small town. So
okay, horse wasn't horse would not have come to mind. I was thinking like you go cat and then maybe like dog, maybe there's a bird around. You went straight cat to horse.
Well, again, I grew up in a small town, so a lot of people had property where there were animals outside as well as inside. But nonetheless, I just always loved that. I also am dyslexic and had a lot of challenges in school, but it was undiagnosed until I was in college. So with that, I never could picture myself advancing academically as a kid. I always saw my peers just reading with no problem. And then, of course, you get into science and you get into anything else. Reading is part of that and the comprehension of what you're reading. And as much as I was fascinated by biology and zoology and earth sciences, it was also really hard to learn. Then in middle school, I learned about a college in Southern California. I grew up in Washington State. So
woo, represent.
I was on the east side of the state, much drier.
Oh, beautiful.
But nonetheless, it's still all beautiful up there. Visiting family in Southern California, we were going to places like the LA Zoo and Universal Studios and all these places. And whenever we came across somewhere, so Universal Studios, it was the animal show. LA Zoo was the shows they had there for educational purposes or zookeepers. Everywhere we'd go, my aunt or my mother would ask the person working with animals, how did you get this job? Because this kid needs to do what you're doing. And I'd say probably 80 to 90% of them said, oh, Moorpark College. So I went home, and this was, again, pre-internet. Had to look up in a book the address to Moorpark College, wrote a letter to say I wanted an application packet, got the application packet when I was either 7th or 8th grade, knowing obviously I'm not going to apply then, but it gave me an idea of what I needed to put myself through in high school to become more eligible to be selected. academics aside and the challenges I had, I knew that I wanted a career where I could be in the presence of animals. When I got to Moorpark College, I had this dream of becoming an animal trainer for movie and television work. How fun to hang out on movie and television sets with animals, go home with animals, hang out with animals, go to the movie and television sets. I thought it'd be great.
It does seem like the best of both worlds, right?
If you're into that stuff, right? Yeah. And right out of college, I got a job working for one of the number one companies that did that work in Los Angeles. And it was like dream job right out of the gates. And about a month into it, I was like, something is missing. And it took me a while to figure it out, but I recognized and realized that while I was at Moorpark, I had this opportunity to do wildlife education. Part of the program is the students not only learn about the animals and take care of the animals there at the zoo, but they have to also learn how to do presentations, whether it's a single species or put together a whole show, whether it's for preschoolers or senior citizens or family groups, whatever it may be. And I loved that so much. And I didn't realize how much that made me feel like just this is my space until I didn't have it.
Oh, yeah.
After I left Moorpark, I didn't have that educational component anymore. And I was like, but this is my dream job. This is what I've always wanted to do.
It's the sharing of the information. Like, you don't want to have to keep it all in here.
Well, it's the sharing of the information, but I also fell in love with watching people's faces when they would look at and see the animals. That's the feeling that I get. That when I can see people light up. I always tell a lot of people in media, it must be the feeling Santa Claus gets when he's at the mall. Because his perspective is he's seeing all these kids and families just excited to see him there. The anticipation to be with him, the excitement to talk to him, right? For me, it was never about me. It was about watching the audience react to the animal doing something, responding to information they're receiving, leaning in and asking questions about an animal that they're not too sure about, but they are curious.
Yeah.
Those moments of electrical exchange of energy between the animals and the people and me, that's what I love. I love it so much, and I always have.
Because then you get to kind of be like the connector between them, right? Like you get to like be the bridge that connects people
Absolutely.
to the natural world or to animals. It feels like when you like throw a party and you introduce two friend groups that have never met each other and you're like, ooh, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know if they're going to get along. And then they just hit it off and it's immediate like inside jokes and having fun. And you're like, oh, yes, like these two spheres of existence that are both important to me, that I love both of them. And now I've gotten to bring them together. Now they can love each other.
Yep, exactly that. Exactly that. That sort of connection that is created, that being that conduit between the two is exactly it. And the other side of it is too, of course, the more we work with animals, the more we learn the challenges they face in the wild. And we as zoo workers, as conservationists, as educators cannot save them ourselves. We need to be able to reach out and create that, as you just said, bring those two friend groups together. I need to bring you two together so we can all work on this together, so we can all be thoughtful in the way we live, how we approach things, the things that are of value to us. It's all encompassing that way. And so I spent the next several years looking for the right fit to do that. Landed at the San Diego Zoo in 2000 as a part-time keeper in the children's zoo, which was perfect for me because the majority of the animals there were educational ambassadors. So I was doing half-day zookeeper work, half-day presentations, and I loved every minute of it. I thought, this is where I'm going to retire. I'm good to go. This is it. Then about 2009, 2010, I did this sort of unusual transition to being the spokesperson for the San Diego Zoo and the safari park. Not planned, did not have that on my radar at all, but I'm the guy that won't shut up about animals. And
like, get the yapper on it.
Right. If you're going to put a camera in front of my face, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it, right? And so with that, being in that position for about, 10 years before the pandemic hit, that 10 years, I was traveling all over for the organization, whether I was doing TV shows or going to our conservation sites. I was going places I never would have thought on a zookeeper budget I would be able to go to Africa several times, the Queensland coast of Australia for koala conservation, Galapagos Islands, and on and on. And to bring these stories back and communicate with people and just to be able to do that has been something I've always, always loved. My career shifted a little bit into production and podcasting. After the pandemic, things changed, so we weren't traveling as much, so we brought production on property. We were doing Animal Planet TV show for a while. And again, I was able to coordinate, put together, and talk about wildlife and help educate and shine a light then on the stories that were there in the zoo and the safari park for conservation, all the work they're doing. And then we moved into doing podcasting. So Marco, who's been on your show before, was my co-host. And we did this 4 years of this great podcast called Amazing Wildlife. And then just at the end of last year, near the end of 2025, a big chunk of my department was laid off. And I was one of them that got laid off. And it's really weird when you've been with an organization for 25 years to suddenly now not have that as a part of your identity. And I remember clearly when the weeks that followed, I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do? How is this going to work? Because I've got a lot of great skills, but they're very specific.
I have a very special set of skills.
Exactly, right. And so I found myself trying to figure things out. And I reminded myself that I was not the position or the title there at that organization, that I am a wildlife educator at heart. The one thing that turned me around from my dream job to what I really belonged doing was being that wildlife educator when I was a kid, when I was out of college. And so I'm like, okay, what can I do? And so I put together my own podcast, Animals, Nature, and You. And I'm hosting people that do work in conservation, that do work in naturalists. Well, just recently had David Mesajewski from the National Wildlife Federation talking about how in your garden you can do things for native wildlife and native pollinators and everything in between, because that's what I'm passionate about, is sharing those stories and telling people about that. So here we are.
You know, that concept of like the convergence of things that you love doing, things that you are good at, and things that you can get paid for. And like, it is so vanishingly rare that a person can find that convergence of those, like where those three Venn diagram circles overlap. You know? Yeah. I mean, it takes a long road, and it takes a lot of trying different things, like you mentioned, like different positions, trying different types of jobs, but always coming back to like, okay, I know the thing that made me happiest, and I know the thing that like I felt like I was in the right place when I was doing it, and like always looping back around to the place where you belong.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And, so I also spent some time through all of that. I was a part-time instructor at Moore Park College. 4 years before the pandemic, I was teaching part-time up there, and I would meet students. And so often, I think a lot of people who have the passion to work with wildlife or animals, they see it doesn't pay much, or a family member see it doesn't pay much. Like, well, you shouldn't do that. It doesn't pay for. Oh, it's not a real job. You shouldn't. No one does that for real, especially if you don't live near a big zoo or a conservation area or anything that someone can point to and see tangible. And I heard that growing up. I had a counselor in high school say, "Well, it's not a real job to work with animals. No, not too many people really do that. That's not very realistic." And so I don't know if it was because I was stubborn or thick-headed or didn't know any better. But my attitude at the time was like, "Well, he just doesn't get it. That school counselor just doesn't know what he's talking about."
Not seeing the vision at all.
Right, exactly. And so I guess the point I want to bring up in that is it was a stubborn streak, a tenacity to just like, no, this is what I want to do with my life. Yeah. And I'll find a way to do it. And it's not been without its challenges. It's not all roses and rainbows, but it has always been that driving factor that I want to be able to wake up each day and feel that feeling that I get when I get to be that conduit between the general public and wildlife.
The animal that we're going to talk about today is, I feel like, pretty commonly used as an ambassador animal. You see them a lot of times. Like when I've seen them at zoos, I often see them in shows where like keepers will bring them out onto a stage. And I feel like they interact with keepers very well, and they interact with handlers very well. But I'm wondering, through your time working as a keeper, working as a handler, doing presentations, things like that, do you have like an absolute favorite animal that you've gotten to work hands-on with? Like, do you have one that just really stands out as like having a special place in your heart?
Well, that's definitely the binturong, what we're talking about today. Absolutely. And that's why whenever someone says, well, what species you want to talk about? I'm like, binturong, because they're just so freaking awesome on so many levels. And I absolutely just had my heart stolen by the first one I ever worked with, and there was no looking back after that. But then, asterisk to that, I will say I have worked hands-on with a fossa or fossa, however you want to say it, the Madagascar carnivore. I never thought I would see one in person, much less get to be a part of a team that raised an ambassador that got to come out and do programs. And so that is just like, I still can't believe that happened. I look at pictures from it and I'm like, how is that my life? And the other asterisk to that too then is I got to work hands-on with a white-bellied tree pangolin and be a part-time keeper with it and working as an ambassador also. And that's another species that when I was in college, there was like maybe a quarter of a page in the Mammal Atlas, because again, nothing was online at the time. that was attributed to the pangolin. So little was known about it when I was in college that I knew it existed, but I never, ever imagined I would see one in person, much less get to be a keeper.
Triple platinum in my house.
Nice.
Look at this little guy.
Nice.
Sorry, I don't record video, so this is nobody's seeing this. I'm holding up this is just for you. I'm holding up my little toy pangolin that I have I bought impulsively at a store one time. To be able to work with one, like I feel like they're so rare to see anywhere. Like I've never even, I don't think, seen one in a zoo anywhere.
They're more in zoos in the U.S. now, but also when I started at San Diego Zoo, we had an echidna. And I didn't realize how rare they were in general in the U.S. We had people traveling as a keeper for the area where it lived. I'd have people come and he would go to bed as we'd lock up. He was in an outdoor space and we would cover him up. And people would be like, oh, do we miss him? We came all the way from, name the city, name the part of Canada or whatever to see him because there's nowhere else to see them. And same thing with the pangolins. It was one of those situations where nowhere else in the U.S. at the time could you see them, much less have a presentation. We would bring them out. We had a perching area for them, and we'd do like a keeper talk while they just hung out and climbed around and had a good time. And
I'd cry. I would be fully in tears, really, sobbing, ugly sobbing.
We would have people who would be very, very upset if they missed the talk. If they were, I was stuck on the other side of the zoo. And I mean, I get it. Again, these are species that I never thought I would ever see in person, much less have the opportunity to know intimately in the sense of their feeding schedule, their personality, their demeanor, all of that.
You can see their little quirks and stuff. And you start to kind of like understand their cues and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, it's one thing I say often to people, because as someone who's been around animals his whole life, interfacing with people who don't have that opportunity, often people are somewhat surprised or taken off guard when they hear that every animal has its own individual personality, its own likes and dislikes. You could have two of the exact same species raised the exact same way, and they're going to be different. And I say, well, it's like if you have a brother or a sister, you're raised in the same household.
You can have the same parents and everything and be completely different people.
Right, but you're very different. You're very individual, and it's no different with the animals we get to work with. And it's a matter of, as you spend more time with them, you get to know these quirks about their personalities, and it's just such a wonderful opportunity. Again, I look back from where I am now. I'm like, I can't believe I've done half the stuff I've done, gotten to know the people and the animals I've gotten to know. It's amazing.
Last little aside before I stop derailing us, and I just had to respond because you mentioned you got to work with Fusa, which I have seen Fusa maybe twice in my life at like two different zoos.
Oh,
There's
so
a zoo
amazing
in Florida that has them. I'm trying to remember what it was. It's in Gainesville somewhere, I think. When I was at the San Diego Zoo for the first time in my life this year, I was walking by the Fusa exhibit. And of course I had to like make a little, it's kind of tucked away and like it's a little bit away from the main loop. And I went out of my way to go see it. And honestly, I walked right by them, totally missed them. And it just so happened to be early enough in the morning that there was like nobody there. This was like early on a Sunday morning. Like I was there at rope drop and everything. So it was kind of dead. And there was a keeper at a different exhibit. We were just chit-chatting. And I was like, I tried to, see the Fusa, but I missed it. And they were like, oh, I'll show you. And walked with me back over to where the Fusas were. They were like, they like to hang out over there. Not only did I see the Fusa, but I saw a whole pile of baby Fusas. They were babies and they were all cuddled in a pile.
Yeah, they're ridiculous.
And I was like, you've changed my life. Thank you. Thank you for There was nobody else there. So they were like, oh, hold on, I'll show you where they are.
But that's just it too, right? That's the cool thing about you go into a zoo at opening or you're there close to closing, you get to see the animals doing different behaviors, but you also have the opportunity sometimes to be the only person who can interact with that keeper. So they're not inundated, they're not swamped. If they see one person, I know being a former zookeeper, I see one or two people, I'll go out and talk to you.
Yeah, they will come find you.
But the thing is if there's like 25 people, I don't got time to answer all those questions. I'm going to ditch out and go back over here just because we understand the time limit of what it takes. But absolutely, when you can catch one-on-one with the zookeeper, that's the best.
Ooh, showing up right when they open, I gotta say that's the move.
Yeah,
Getting to the zoo as early as because I had to catch my flight home at like 4 p.m. and I knew I only had like a few hours to spend.
Small window.
So I was like, I was literally there. I was like parking my car like 30 minutes before they opened, and I was like,
That's the way to do it, though. That's
I was
the way
so
to do it.
locked in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. People always say, like, what's your inside tip for, visiting a zoo? I'm like, find out when they open, get there 30 minutes beforehand.
Yeah, you want to be like
be
the first
one in the
there.
door. Yeah. And if you have a favorite animal, go see that one first, because most animals are active in the morning hours before they take their midday nap. So if you have a favorite species that is a must see, go see that one first.
Beeline.
And then backtrack and figure out where else we want to go.
Also, the funniest comment, I was walking through, once again, it's super early in the morning, and I'm looking at these koalas, and the koalas are really cutting one up. Like, they're in a mood. They are running, like, around on the climbing things. They're kind of like jumping, which I've never seen them do before. The koalas are just...
It's impressive.
It's early in the morning. The koalas have a lot of energy. They're on one. They're, like, really putting on a show. I'm overjoyed. I'm, of course, taking 1,000 pictures, having the time of my life watching these koalas. I'm absolutely enthralled. And then I hear from behind me, this other family comes, they stop, they look at the koala, and then I hear in the thickest accent I've ever heard, I go, we got those at home. And like, they just keep walking. They did not care.
Nope.
We got those at home.
Yep. I've had that happen multiple times because, again, San Diego is a tourist destination. People from around the world. In the San Diego Zoo, you hear every accent and every language you can think of, especially in the summertime. So, yeah, you'll hear that sometimes. Like, well, I see those at home, whatever species it might be. But, yeah, that's hilarious. I love it.
That is me when I see alligators. I'm like,
right? Yeah, the average American, when they're out somewhere and they see a skunk or a raccoon in a habitat, well, we have those at home.
I got one of those in my backyard right now.
Right?
Okay, so as you mentioned, one of your favorite animals to have worked with is the binturong, which I do feel like for people who did not maybe grow up zoo kids or maybe did not have access to a ton of wildlife content or good like wildlife education, this is one of those animals that flies under the radar. I feel like they're not usually in the documentaries. They're not usually front and center. They don't get a lot of media hype. So for people who have never in their lives heard of a binturong, could you introduce us? Who is this? Who's this man?
The binturong. Well, I think to first address why the average citizen probably does not know about them. Although, like you said earlier, you go to a zoo, you tend to see ambassador versions, like they're out there doing presentations, because I think their demeanor is well suited for that. They do well working with people. In the wild, though, they're very elusive, so you don't see them in documentaries. They aren't the, cool predator who slowly stalks its prey and there's drama. They're omnivorous. They are carnivores, but they're omnivorous. 80% of their diet is fruits in vegetation. Not really good for documentaries. There's not a lot of drama in eating fruit,
Like, there's only so many angles we can, video this thing eating, papayas from.
Exactly. They have a great sense of smell and great hearing too, and they would rather not find out what's making that sound. And so they're very elusive. So much so that we don't even know for sure 100% what their population is right now because they're hard to find and track. Now, there are organizations and conservation groups doing work trying to find those numbers because they are important. But in general, the binturong, also known as the bearcat. If you are listening to this in North America, you might be familiar with the Cincinnati Bearcats.
Oh.
Bearcat is a real animal. The mascot bearcat is based on the binturong.
What sport is this? I'm sorry, I do not know this team.
It's a college. I don't know what sport. I don't know. It's a college mascot. So I suppose it's for all of their sports. I don't know.
What a pull! I would love to know the story behind that.
Right? Somebody somewhere came across a bearcat. Like, hey, let's put that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's not like this. Like, some schools have very silly mascots, but they're at least some sort of like local relevance. It's like you've got like the banana slugs or like something like that. Like, this seems like out of left field.
Especially for you're in Ohio. So, I mean, I don't know where these animals are native to Southeast Asia. So I don't quite get the connection, but somebody somewhere knew about it.
Support it.
In general, they vary in size depending upon the region they're found in and also male or female. So they can range anywhere from 20 to 40 pounds, anywhere from 4 to 6 feet at the maximum, and that's nose to tip of tail. Tail is about half of that length I just mentioned. So proportionately, the tail makes up a good chunk of the length of the body.
It's mostly tail.
They are usually a dark black and brown grizzly color. Some have light gray accents that can be just on the face and shoulders. Some can be almost the entire face and body with this lighter gray, grizzled sort of look that's on the outer portion of the dark coat.
Please, a salt and pepper.
Yeah. It's like myself. I have that going on. I've got the Binturong
Listen,
look.
I got some Sweeney Todd, Bride of Frankenstein strands going on.
What else could I say? They've got their ears, although the ears themselves, the actual ear shape is rounded like a bear's. They do have tufts of hair usually that come off of them that give them more of a pointed look, anywhere from a little triangle up to a long lynx type flare of hair, if you will. Their coat in general is also very fluffy. People look at them when I used to do presentations, they would usually guess they live in a northern forest. They were surprised to hear that it's more of a tropical rainforest because the coat looks very thick and fluffy. But the hairs are very bristly. I always would tell people that if you've ever had a chance to pet like a wire-haired terrier, it's kind of that thicker, coarser coat with a thin undercoat. And the long, wiry type hair was waterproof. So when they're out in the rainforest, obviously water, if it gets on your body, it's going to rob you of temperature very quickly. So this long coat would allow the water to hit it and then roll off to the sides. If anybody listening is familiar with civets and genets, these are part of the civet genet family. Viverridae is the family. This is a unique group of carnivores that are found usually in Africa and Asia, or we call them old world carnivores. And they're very fascinating. And like I said, binturongs in general, although are carnivores, they have the teeth and the digestive system of a carnivore, they're mostly going to be eating fruit. And they're super important for helping to spread seeds all around the forest floor because they will eat fruit whole or they'll take a couple bites of it, but still swallow that pulp and seed whole. And as it goes through the system, their system helps the seed get to a point where it can properly germinate. Without going through the digestive system, that may not be the case, which is true for many species. Many birds and many other animals do this for the forest, being this sort of underrated gardener, if you will.
It seems to me, because you mentioned that they're called bear cats, it seems like people have a hard time deciding whether they are more bear or more cat. It all seems to me like monkey software on like weasel hardware almost.
Right. And so it's so funny too. I really appreciate you mentioning that because yes, I think the nickname Bearcat comes from the idea that somebody wasn't sure that somehow we've mixed a bear and a cat together and this is what we got. I don't know if they're trying to be descriptive to a friend. Well, it's kind of this bear cat looking thing. I don't know. And that name stuck. But I would have people say when I would walk out with the one that I used to work with and they'd be like, you'd see their eyeballs try to figure out what they're looking at. And I'm like, what do you think it's related to? And I would hear anything from weasel to otter to marten, depending upon what the person knew, they could try and compare it to.
I forgot martens were an animal. I thought you were just like tossing out a name. This is just
my Uncle Martin. That's what it looks like.
Gavin. Yeah, I don't know.
Fair enough. Wolverine. How about that? Wolverine.
Oh, yeah. I can see that too.
Yeah. So you'd get a lot of comparison to what people knew, but most of the time if someone didn't know what it was, they couldn't place where it would live because the coat throws them off. They think it's north cold weather. They look at the long tail. They think it's partly related to a monkey.
Yeah.
So like I said, monkey software and a weasel hardware. So there's so many more cool facts. I could spend hours doing an educational presentation about them just because they're so fascinating.
All of these traits are familiar to me independently,
right?
But never together like this.
Yeah.
Like you got the tufted ears, you've got the prehensile tail, and the big shaggy coat. And you're like, I've seen animals with all of these things, but they shouldn't all go together on the same animal. These are traits that don't belong together.
Oh, and I will say this. If you or your listeners have the opportunity to see one in the daylight, I wouldn't say super up close, but up close enough you can look them in the eye, you may think they don't have pupils.
Oh.
So they are, for the most part, crepuscular and nocturnal
Favorite
in the
word.
wild.
Best word in the English language. That's
exactly
gotta
right.
be the best
and so
one.
twilight hours, crepuscular is the twilight hours, morning and evening. In the zoo environment, they of course are used to our human rotation. They adapt well to the diurnal lifestyle, but they are basically evolved to be in dark forest, in dark places, in the forest where they live, even if it's a full moon. Sometimes that light doesn't penetrate. So their pupils expand huge. But in the daylight, because it's a slit pupil like a cat, that closes down so much. They're looking at you, but you can't always make out the pupil because that slit is so small. So another sort of fun fact, I've had people ask me, like, wait, do they even have pupils? What's going on with their eyes?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Once again, a weird trait to have on this animal because those like vertical slit pupils, We see them in a lot of other animals, but usually the animals we see vertical slit pupils on are hunters. They're like cats or snakes or something like that, like a hunter that would maybe be like low to the ground or something. And like that is just a trait that we usually see associated with like a hunting style. But binturongs, once again, not using them at all for that.
Right. So here's the thing about, and I think the why behind that, and of course this is completely just, my guess. I have no scientific thing to lean on for this.
Noodling.
But when you look at how they have to move through the forest, depending upon the region you're looking at, the subspecies you're looking at, they have to deal with tigers hunting them. They have to deal with clouded leopards hunting them. They have to deal with dholes hunting them. So the ability to have depth perception in all lighting, to be able to maneuver away from those, climbing trees, three-dimensional spaces, all of these things are super important. So that vision has to be acute, almost comparative to what a predator is going to need to find, lock in, and move on to that next space successfully, catching all the light that it can. So I think somewhere in there, maybe there's a branch off the carnivore that there was a more carnivorous version. They are with the civets and genets, so it's quite possible because some of those are avid predators, but most of them omnivorous. So I don't know. It depends. And they will eat, the other 20% of their diet, they will eat birds. So if they can catch them, at nighttime, they'll eat small, rodents, reptiles, things like that. Again, they're not an aggressive avid hunter like you see your lions and jaguars and all that, but they still do that. 20% of the diet. So somewhere in there, it's important for them.
It also wouldn't be completely unheard of for like a carnivore lineage to like adapt to a less carnivore. Like we've seen it with bears, right? We've seen like
right, exactly,
even like black bears aren't completely like hunter. They're not as carnivorous as people think they are. But then you've got panda bears that have just given up on meat entirely. So like we see carnivores sometimes give up on the whole meat thing, and they're like, and the fruit doesn't run from me, so I think I'll just grab this.
That's exactly. That's what I was like, they're kind of like, yeah, I'll just have a fruit salad. It's cool. Yeah, you fly away, little bird. I don't care. But I will say this. The dentition or tooth structure of the binturong is one of the most crazy carnivore, like super sharp teeth. There is nothing about their dentition that would make me go, oh yeah, that guy eats fruit.
Yeah.
Like you look at the opossum and it's a bunch of ridges and looks like just like somebody had a bunch of extra teeth and they jammed them in the mouth. That to me says omnivorous.
Yeah.
Like you got all the different teeth in there. That's an omnivore right there. You look at the teeth of a binturong, and I'd be like, that guy is hunting and killing long canines, super needly sharp for grasping onto that prey item, sharp maxillaries in the back. Nope, I'd rather have fruit salad. Huh. So, yeah, I don't think you're very far off from something there where there's probably lineage thousands of millions of years ago. They're like, yeah, you know what? I think fruit's better.
And I wonder if maybe that like implies that it was a behavioral shift that was so recent. Like maybe a recent shift that maybe the teeth just haven't caught up yet. Or maybe like it's fine. A lot of times in evolution will just be like, this is fine. It's working fine. We don't need to change this.
I mean, I guess it does work for picking fruit if you get that sharp tooth to just grab it and pull it off.
Especially if it's like a fruit with like a hard skin on it. If it's something that could work just the same.
That could work too.
Hey y'all, we are going to take a quick break to hear from our friends on the Maximum Fun Network. When we get back, we are going to get into our ratings for binturongs, so stay with us.
International Waters is back, baby! Do you like fun, silly conversations? Do you like fun, silly games? We got them both! And it's on International Waters. I am the host, Dave Holmes. This is a panel show that pits American and British comics against each other in a lively and hilarious competition. What is Gentleman's Relish? Who is Bagpuss? Why is the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile so emotionally resonant? And why does an American cheese have its own anthem? Get the answers and be left with numerous questions about that and so much more nonsense and or codswallop twice a month here on International Waters. You can catch International Waters on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Alexis.
Hey Ella.
What animal has the most teeth?
I would guess a shark.
A snail.
No, snails don't have teeth.
They have thousands and they are freaky looking.
No, I don't want that to be true. Okay. Did you know that the hippocampus in your brain is named after the half-horse, half-fish sea creature found in Greek mythology?
I didn't know that, but we're meant to be doing animal trivia and hippocampus isn't a real animal.
Well, that doesn't matter on Comfort Creatures.
You're right, it doesn't matter at all.
Comfort Creatures is a cozy show for lovers of animals of all shapes and sizes, real and unreal.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, then join us every Thursday Thursday for new episodes on MaximumFun.org.
If this is anyone's first time listening to the show, our gimmick, our bit, is that we rate animals out of 10 in different categories. And the first one is effectiveness. So it's physical traits like adaptations and things built into the animal's body that let them find their food, not become food themselves, do the things that they're trying to do. So, Rick, what do you give binturongs out of 10 for effectiveness?
I have to go through the roof as far as effectiveness.
What can't they do? I feel like they're like adapted to so
It's like,
many different things.
right. So in the space of what you've offered me, I will say 10. In my heart, I'm talking like 76, maybe 79 out of 10. They have broad feet. The pads are textured. It always reminded me sort of the old school tennis shoes or Vans shoes with that squishy sole. But they're great for climbing. So they have hooked claws, broad front feet, and their elongated back feet, which allow them to climb very well. They can wrap their back feet a little bit around the tree trunk. And the other, of course, big assistant to their climbing is their prehensile or grasping tail. So they're not going to hang from it like a monkey, like a spider monkey or a woolly monkey, but they'll use it as an anchor. And they can anchor that tail, holds about 50, 60% of the body weight, and reach out with the front feet then to grab the next branch to kind of use that limb to extend out the body for the reach or reaching out for fruit or something like that. Their soft, squishy feet and sharp claws are perfect for climbing, but also they are silent when they walk.
Ooh, and that's tough to do because it's a big animal.
Right, and they can slip through the forest undetected. They are so good at avoiding things that even though they live in spaces where there's clouded leopards, tigers, dholes, orangutans, and people can find those and count them and see them, they don't know about binturongs yet. They're still working on that. Binturongs have been like flying under the radar, like you said. The adaptations for climbing, spending time in the trees, finding fruit, being able to be omnivorous in behavior, live in the rainforest in all weather, no matter what. It's just 10 out of 10 for adaptations and ability to be who they are, succeeding at life.
I also want to give them some props for having a prehensile tail because outside of like primates, I feel like there's not a lot of animals who have that.
There's only one other carnivore alive today on our planet that we know of. Maybe there's one hiding somewhere that's even doing hide and seek better than a binturong. I don't know. But the only other one we know of on the planet today fills kind of a similar niche, sort of, is a great climber also, much smaller, and they're from the rainforests of South and Central America, and it's the kinkajou.
Oh, yeah.
They have a prehensile tail also.
Oh, it seems like such an unusual trait to have.
It is.
Because we see it in monkeys too, right? But like specifically, is it the Central and South American monkeys that have like the prehensile tails too?
Right, yeah. And we do see them in marsupials. So marsupials aren't considered. So what I frame that as the only other carnivore, these are carnivores with prehensile tails. There are marsupials that are carnivorous, and there are marsupials that are omnivorous. And so there are marsupial species. The opossums and possums do have prehensile tails also.
Marsupials feel like they're totally in their own club.
They are, yeah. They're from Planet Marsupial. We'll talk about them later.
None of you guys count for anything we're talking about. You guys have your own thing going on entirely.
But true prehensile, yeah, I think Binturong is the only one rocking it over there.
We haven't even talked about the thing that most people would probably talk about first with binturongs. I can't believe we are currently at 40 minutes into the recording and have not mentioned the one thing that like the majority of people think about for binturongs.
I can talk for hours about binturongs. I told you.
Crazy that we've gotten this far without talking about it. That anyone who, if you are lucky to live near a zoo that has binturongs, you may know, you might smell them before you see them.
Yeah.
Could you talk to me about this? Talk to me about the smell.
Oh, absolutely. One of my first and favorite things for the longest time was to talk about how they smell when they mark their territory. And I would always tell kids, a lot of times we have animals that use body fluids, such as urine, or they use excrement to mark their territories. Sometimes there's a gland that they have on their face or their rump or somewhere else in their body. Hyrax have it on their back. Go figure.
Just throw them wherever. Just put your glands wherever.
Right, exactly. Whatever can come in contact. And it usually has a musky odor or a fecal odor or just something, right? But when the binturongs are around, for whatever reason, we get a little snacky feeling for some reason. I think I might want some popcorn or some corn chips. And that was the claim to fame for the binturong talk, was always talking about the fact that they do have this odor of popcorn or corn chips about them that often people think there must be a popcorn stand nearby when they're visiting the binturong habitat because they can smell that.
It is distinct too. Like you will immediately, it is immediate like, oh, it's popcorn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have talked to some people who've worked with binturongs that say, ours don't quite smell. It's a little muskier than that. And for the longest time, when I was, researching binturong information, trying to make sure I can give all the proper information, it was placed as a part of their musk gland near their rump. So if people don't know, there are species of civets that have been used for many, many, like hundreds of years as part of the cologne and perfume family. Their glands of one of the civets, I don't remember the species, would be harvested or used for very expensive perfumes because of I guess it smelled good. I don't know. So they're well known for having these glands. And so it was just published that this is how, for whatever reason, it probably smells different to binturongs. They got a great sense of smell. For our nose, it smells like popcorn. Well, fast forward to 2016, a study was done where they started looking at, like, where does this come from? What is it about? Long and the short of it, there is a chemical compound, 2-acetyl-1-propylene, or 2-AP is the short version. That smell is what happens when certain amino acids and sugars are heated to a certain temperature in popcorn. That's the smell. That chemical reaction, 2-AP, is what we smell with freshly popped popcorn. Same thing happens with freshly steamed rice also. It's the same chemical reaction due to high temperature. So, like, how does the binturong have this smell? Why is this coming off the binturong?
Right.
It ends up, the 2-AP occurs because of the acids and other compounds in their urine mixing with bacteria on their coat and on their body. That creates a chemical reaction of 2-AP, which gives them that smell. And I love that for them.
Right. So such a wild coincidence that this combination of completely biological, naturally occurring chemicals in their body happens to yield the exact same result as one of our favorite snacks.
Yes. Yeah, and I will say, of course, it depends on the animal, where they are, the bacteria on their body, and it's not harmful bacteria. It's not so often we hear bacteria as humans are like, oh, infection. We have bacteria all over us and in our guts that help us maintain proper balance of our life. Same thing for binturongs and other animals. It just so happens that whatever bacteria they have on them and whatever compounds are in their urine happen to create this mix that occurs. And like any animal low to the ground, when they urinate, they tend to drag or track or step in it, and it gets on their body elsewhere, and it releases this smell. And it is just fascinating. It is just fascinating to me that of all the animals that we know of in the animal kingdom, binturongs have just nailed this 2-AP smell for some reason.
I've always said that, like, if I was ever designing my own zoo, I would have a popcorn stall very close to the binturong exhibit. Because, like, you get the smell, you think, oh, you know what I could go for right now?
Right? Oh, total upsell. Yeah.
Although if people, like, know too much about it, they might be turned off by it. They might be like, ugh.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like, if you're in too deep, then you might be like, I don't think I actually want popcorn right now. But the smell is like, I've smelled it. It is quite distinct. Although I have heard people who work with binturongs closely say that they have gotten sick of the smell. It's like how, like, even if you work at, like, a grocery store or a bakery or something, smells that you might really, really love at first, once you're around it every day and, like, you work around it and you start to associate it with, like, being at work and being, like, tired and sweaty, then eventually you're like, ugh. So did you ever get sick of the smell of binturongs?
Never.
No.
Never. No, I am one of those weirdos that I can absolutely see how, like, if I were to work at a coffee shop, I eventually would stop wanting to smell coffee. Again, I think a lot of it, you look at it from a psychological level. I had a very strong emotional attachment to the first binturong I ever worked with. We became really, really tight friends up until his last days. I was one of the only people that could administer the medicines he needed. And it just was a strong, strong bond. So there's an emotional attachment I have to the species and that smell that I don't think I'll ever get tired of it, and now, of course, not working with them at all. It's like, if I can just get a whiff of it someday, I'd be happy, But
do you, like, go to the movie theater and get, like, suddenly hit by a wave of nostalgia? You're like, oh, my boy.
I will say this. I really like steamed rice. And so when I do cook steamed rice, it's like, oh.
I remember when.
Bandar, I miss you.
It's so funny, like your brain getting kind of like rewired because of the smell of this animal. I mean, there are worse things your musk could smell like, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I've worked with enough animals. There are worse things they can smell like.
Because like a lot of animals, they have a really, really strong smell. This one just happens to also be one that smells good, like that we like. Yeah. You know, you've got things like maned wolves, right, that smell like marijuana.
Right. Yeah, or tamanduas smell like a very pungent skunk.
Oh, and you know what? I smell skunks all the time. I have not seen one ever. And I smell them like at least once a week. This is unfair. I'm only getting the bad part of skunks being around. I don't get to see them, and they're adorable.
Yeah, when I was growing up in Washington, I think I maybe only saw 2 in my entire 19 years of living there.
Never seen
but I smelled them all the time because they're all over the place, yeah.
Now, having gotten to work hands-on with binturongs and getting to work very closely with them, you, of course, as you mentioned earlier, become very familiar with even just their individual little behaviors. So the next category that we rate animals on out of 10 is ingenuity. These are behaviors, ways the animal is navigating their world or solving problems that they face. What do you give binturongs out of 10 for ingenuity?
Ingenuity. So the way you described it there and existing in their environment, again, I'm going to go high on this one, and I don't think that's a surprise because
you're allowed.
From what we've talked about. Well, it's definitely, again, respecting what you're offering, 10 out of 10, absolutely. My own personal scale, way above. But it's one of those things where you look at their ability to exist in their environment. So, and you look at also, so they're listed right now as vulnerable on IUCN. The last studies done in the wild that have been formally captured by IUCN was 10 years ago. In that statement, it said that they were listed as vulnerable because their population had dropped by 30% in the last 18 years. And you then look at why is their population dropping? It's because of loss of habitat, illegal wildlife trade, a lot of the stuff we hear about, clearing of forest for palm oil, things like that, similar to other species in the area and the challenges they face. You remove the human impact of this species, and they're ridiculously successful in the sense that, again, you have found your way as a carnivore to not have to expend energy to hunt, not injure yourself trying to hunt and kill another animal, because injuries can happen when that happens. So I think that's a brilliant move on their part. You've got a prehensile tail for going up and down trees like it's no big deal. Your back feet can rotate 180 degrees, so you go head down, any direction, honestly. You got soft, squishy pads, so you can sneak around. You're dark in color, so you hide in the forest very easily. You're waterproof, so it doesn't matter what the weather's doing. You still go out and do your thing. I think for ingenuity, we're definitely a 10 out of 10 on this.
Being arboreal introduces a third dimension, right, to the space that you have to navigate as an animal, right? For like humans, we live a largely two-dimensional existence, right? There's only sort of one plane that we can navigate. We can kind of go, forward, backward, left, right. But for arboreal animals, they have to navigate 3 dimensions of space because they're climbing up and down in the trees, and they have to be aware of like their surroundings both above and below them. So to me, I feel like any arboreal animal is likely to have really good like spatial awareness and spatial reasoning, right? Like having to and probably also a lot of spatial memory, like having to remember like where the tree is, like, okay, this tree has good fruit on it. This tree has like an eagle nest on it that is like very dangerous to me.
This one has a bigger binturong. I'm staying away from that one.
Yeah, like you have to remember so much more about your environment when there's like a new axis of movement in it.
Yeah.
Now, in your time working with them, you mentioned that they have distinct little personalities and that they can have little quirks and stuff like that. Were you ever like working with a binturong that did something that was like really surprising to you that you really didn't expect them to do, or something that was just like a little odd, quirky little thing that they did?
It was interesting to me. So again, the very first one I worked with, when I started there, he was about 4 years old, give or take, if I remember correctly. The team was all women, so he was only used to working with women. Literally, the conversation was, well, he's never worked with a man before. Let's see what happens. And I would see him with the people he'd worked with long before I arrived there, and he would engage and play with them. He was good about doing the things asked of him when he needed to for a presentation, but he'd also engage with play and be silly. And when I worked with him, it was like, okay, you've got the clicker and the bait bag. I'll do what you say. Sure. Full respect. Oh, you want me to do that? Sure. But wouldn't like give me the time of day otherwise.
You weren't one of the girls. Sorry.
I wasn't family,
You didn't come to brunch. I'm sorry. You were not.
That's fine. That's fine. I get it, man. This is where I got a working relationship. I respect you. You respect
We're
me.
coworkers. We have like a was strictly professional.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
It's strictly professional between me and this Binturong. I'm sorry. We don't hang out outside of work. Sorry.
No. But then about 6 months into working with him regularly, we were finishing up a presentation and he flops onto his back, presents his belly, which is his solicitation for play, which I knew because I'd seen him do that with so many other people. And I was like,
this is it. This is it.
I'm in. I think I'm in.
I'm in.
I got invited to brunch. And
you're like, I'm one of the girls.
yeah, I was totally in. And I was so excited and so honored. Literally, not being silly on that part. It was an honor to be accepted at that level.
Right, because it feels like the animal trusting you, right? This animal being like, I've seen what you can do, and like now I'm ready to be a little more vulnerable with you.
Exactly. And it was one of those things where I had resigned to the fact that we could just have a working relationship, and that's okay. I'd worked enough animals prior to that job. I knew that sometimes you get a really good relationship and you hit it off, sometimes not, and that's fine. No big deal. But to answer your question about surprising was I did not expect what had been so many months of just a working relationship to suddenly just, whether it was sudden in his mind or not, but for my experience, we went from a normal working relationship to we're now best friends.
Aww.
And it was a switch. To me, it felt like a switch that quick. And, I was so enamored with him and just thought he was such a cool animal anyways. But then to be brought into that fold, I just was like, okay, let's do it. How about let's not just do brunch. Let's go out for coffee on Wednesday.
You're like, I would do anything for you.
Right. Exactly. And our relationship just grew from there. And I loved working with him. After he passed, I worked with another one, got to work with him from a very young age. And that was just a fun relationship to be a part of from a young age. But again, going back to your original question of that, surprise or that took me aback, that moment with Bandar was definitely the one.
Especially for an animal that is not typically like extremely social, right? Like not a super social animal. It does seem like you earned it, right? Like you couldn't just like jump right in and be like best friends right away. You had to like earn it, and the animal had to kind of like learn you a little bit. Like it's like you had to like prove yourself, and then once you were like deemed worthy, the Binturong was like, okay, I accept you as one of the homegirls.
Well, but that in retrospect too, although that moment was profound for me because of the animal, because of the situation, and what that relationship continued to grow into, I can say, as someone who's spent 3 decades working with birds, mammals, and reptiles, most animals, there is sort of that initial, where are we? How do we fit? And I will say this, there are some individual animals I've worked with where I never get that close of a relationship, where my co-trainer, a co-worker, has it for whatever reason. And I honestly say it's a lot like people. There are people that I am friends with, that they have friends I wouldn't be friends with. But I know them because we share this mutual friend. And there are other people that are friends of a friend that once we get to know each other, we're also best friends, and now we're all thick as thieves, right? So it's just a personality and everything else I think that goes with that. But in general, there is sort of that relationship building that you as a human working with animals kind of have to get to and get used to that. And again, it goes back to, I had accepted, like, okay, this is our relationship.
Yeah.
We're a working relationship. That's cool. I can dig it.
Yeah, you weren't desperate. You weren't pushing it. You're not forcing it. It's like with a cat.
I
right?
love me. I'm good with who I am.
It's like a cat, like if you kind of let them come to you, then eventually they'll love on you and sit on your lap. But like if you're too pushy about it, the cat will be like, no, thank you. I don't think so. Oh.
I don't know you.
No, we it's not like that. Well, I feel like it is maybe especially, I don't know if it's especially easy, if it like facilitates the bond or the way that people connect with an animal, but I do think it's important to emphasize how adorable an animal is and how nice they are to look at, like literally just aesthetically, which is the last category that we rate animals on, aesthetics, just how nice is this animal is to look at, because I do legitimately think it is an important like component of our relationship to animals, the way that they look. So just out of curiosity, I can't imagine how you could possibly feel. But Rick, what do you give Binturongs out of 10 for aesthetics?
Well, the Binturongs I have been fortunate enough to work with, I absolutely, again, respecting your scale, 10 out of 10. But off the charts as far as my heart's concerned. I will say this, though. When you start to look around at the different ways regional populations of binturongs can look from different parts of their areas they inhabit, because, again, for anybody who's not aware, we're talking anywhere from mainland Asia to islands, the Philippines and Borneo. So there are populations where they start to look a little different. So aesthetically, there are some that don't look quite as charming as others. They might score maybe a 9.5. But I will say, if you are at a zoo and you have the opportunity, the odds are, if you're at their habitat, anytime that they're not up because a keeper's around, you're probably going to see a black fluff ball that looks kind of like the same kind of hair Chewbacca has, but in black with some gray on it. And that's it. And so that's not very aesthetically pleasing. But I will say, if you have the chance to hang out, maybe they'll get up and move around, you'll see this sort of slow, thoughtful movement. If you get to see an ambassador one out with a person, you're going to see an intelligent animal that's very attentive to its handler, to its person, and you get to see the full extent of their absolute beauty. The face is always just so adorable. The eyes are unique, the ears are unique, and then the way the body is sort of this long-looking, stretched-out animal because that tail is so long, and the base of the tail is very muscular, so it's very thick. Not like when you look at a lion or a tiger, where it tends to be the same width through and through the length of it. Very, very big at the base with a lot of hair that covers it too for that waterproofing. So they've got this unusual sort of from the hips to the tail arc that almost occurs. So aesthetically speaking, I think they're incredibly unique and just ridiculously good-looking animals.
They also have this sort of wisdom, they evoke a sort of ancient, forest spirit wisdom energy. Maybe it's because of how sort of wizardy looking they can be. When they have the long, the tufts of the ears kind of droop downward, and they got the long whiskers and the white hair on the face, where they end up having this old forest wizard Radagast sort of Gandalf-looking appearance.
Don't even get me started on that, because I'll tell you what. I always kind of joked that the older one that I worked with was sort of that grumpy old wise wizard who just, get off my lawn kind of attitude. But you get to know him. He's like, actually, you have all the wisdom in the world once you get to know him.
He'll slip you a dollar bill and a butterscotch on the side.
Right?
He'll give you a hard time about it, but he'll also palm you a little $5.
Exactly. And then the younger one I worked with, although he was that young, youthful energy, there were times where I was with him where there's that sense of wisdom in his eyes. It always amazes me that I think in our day-to-day life, we walk amongst other humans, other animals, and we are in our own little space, and we don't necessarily make that connection to stop down and think about what is this person or this animal's life experience, what's their wisdom. And to have that opportunity when you're a zookeeper, because you spend so much time with these unique species and these animals, you get to know them as individuals. Again, not to go down the path too far, but that sense of wisdom and knowledge that comes from being able to share space with and look in the eyes of another species is truly fascinating. And binturongs, absolutely. The old wise wizard of the forest is exactly how I would say it.
I almost also feel like the fact that they are, and this is purely just from experience and perspective thing, but the idea of them being so unfamiliar, right? Because you really don't see them often. You don't see them in a lot of movies. You don't see them on a lot of TV shows. Right. When you see them, there is probably for you, this effect is gone because you've seen them so much. But for me, at least, who very rarely sees them, when I do see them, there is that moment of incomprehensibility where you're like, what is this? What is this? Your brain can't categorize it right away, right? You're like, it's not a bear. It's not a cat. It's not a monkey. It's not any of these things that I'm used to seeing that I have a filing cabinet in my brain for. So for a minute, your brain is like, I don't know where to put this. I don't.
What is going on here?
What is this? Which to me, as a very sort of novelty-seeking person who is enticed, I guess, by the unfamiliar, that's very engaging for me because I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Who is she?
They are magical creatures, absolutely.
Well, Rick, for anyone who has had a lot of fun learning about binturongs here and wants to learn more from you, I would love it if you could tell people about your podcast and where people can go to hear more from you.
Animals, Nature, and You. Just put that into Google if you want. It's a podcast that's on every podcast platform.
So whatever you're on right now.
Right. Just go to Animals, Nature, and You. It's pretty simple. And the reason I chose that is initially I was looking at nature, animals, and you because I wanted to create a podcast that really allowed me to explore the connection we have with those components, we as humans with animals and with nature, not just one, not just the other. I want to be able to talk about whether it's a connection we have with our pet, connection we have with a wildflower, the connection we have with zebras in Africa, whatever it might be. And so nature, animals, and humans eventually came nature, animal, and you because I wanted to feel personal to the audience. And then the acronym is NAY, which is a negative. So I flipped it around. Okay, animals, nature, you, which then the acronym is ANY, which I absolutely then was like, oh, duh.
Because I never would have thought to like double check the acronym. And I'm so glad that you
my brain works.
That was so smart.
The dyslexic brain checks every possible angle of spelling, of words, of acronyms, because you never know what you're missing. So I'm always like, okay, we just got to decode this.
That's definitely something I would not have noticed until like I had already like made the cover art and posted it and everything. And after the fact, I'd be like, no.
No. Well, there's no going back now. But again, so
sorry, nay.
Nay. Perfect. The acronym ANY, though, was where I landed, and I felt really good about that because part of the message I want people to leave with, no matter whether I'm interviewing somebody who's the head of conservation at the Columbus Zoo or somebody who does backyard birding or anywhere in between, anyone can be a part of conservation anytime, anywhere. It can be something as simple as just something off your own patio, your backyard, your school, or as big as traveling the world doing conservation work and everything in between. So I really love that that's kind of how it naturally came about to being Animals, Nature, and You. And yes, you can find it on any podcast player. You can go to my YouTube channel and find it there. The easiest way to find everything about me, zoologyrick.com. That's my website. That's the hub for all my social media, for the podcast, everything else. If you want to get a hold of me, any of that. I love getting in touch with people and talking to people about wildlife and conservation. So Instagram, Facebook, Threads, all of that.
Awesome. And I do think that it is really valuable, especially for people who maybe are young and want to see what like different career trajectories and different career paths can look like, right? Like you mentioned at the beginning, like a lot of people just straight up do not know that careers like this are even an option at all, that these paths exist. So I think for anybody who maybe is young and getting started on their career journey, or you don't have to be young to start on a career journey, okay?
No.
I'm in my 30s and I'm just now starting some new career stuff that I haven't done before. So like, it's never too late if you are at the point. I've had a lot of people get in touch and be like, you know, I'm just now reconnecting with like my love and interest for nature and wildlife. What do I do? Like, what can I do with this?
Right.
So I feel like podcasts like yours are really, really useful for people who want to know what they can do with this. Like, what are other people doing? Like, what does that look like for other people?
Exactly. Great example, real quick. One of my guests that I had on a while back, she actually works in agriculture, but has always been fascinated by the natural world. And her work is organic agriculture. So there's still that closeness with the earth that way. She ended up taking a botany class for the funsies of it. That grew into even more. And now she's giving guided naturalist hikes in her region because she knows so much and she's so passionate about it. And she loves it. She's putting out great content online about it. Another couple that I've interviewed, the podcast hasn't come out yet, their episode, but they are lighting technicians in Los Angeles for stage and TVs. But they also, on the side, then go to different state parks and they get out and about. And so their podcast, State of the State Parks. And so they're reconnecting through that aspect. And so, yeah, to your point, you don't have to be just a kid. Any age of people going, you know what? I just miss being outside. A lot of the people that I'm really highlighting is just show how you can be a part of it. You know, yes, I want to talk to and I am talking to the conservationists doing the work, but also to the average person who's already got a day job but wants to be a part of it as well, and how it can all start. So yeah, I invite everybody. And yes, people of all ages, kids too. You know, it is a family-friendly podcast. And so the idea is that anybody can find a way to reconnect and what resonates with them to get back in touch with animals and nature. Because we're a part of it. You know, a lot of times in our modern world, nature's outside, nature's over there. I'm sorry, but our building is a nature that we're inside of. And so we are in nature. We are nature. So how do we interact with that? And one of my favorite sayings that is a bad quote, bad in the sense that I'm not sure I'm quoting it correctly, but with Jane Goodall basically saying, everything we do has an impact. So what are we choosing to do? And what impact are we going to have? And it's that conscious thought behind our choices. Doesn't mean you have to drop everything, go fully vegan and live out in the woods. But what is one or two things that can change how your impact is having that ripple effect across the world. And that's what it's about.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, if anyone wants to go see the ripple effect in action, I will have links to everything in the episode description. So anybody listening can just click through and go see all of your other work. Go check out your podcast, check out your website, follow you on social media. As I mentioned at the top, we've been mutuals on social media for years. And I feel like, like I mentioned, even the migration between platforms, because started back on Twitter and then having to move from Twitter over to like TikTok and then TikTok to Instagram. Like I've been bouncing back and forth, but like I feel like you're always there.
I try to be. I love doing it. I just love sharing this information. And so, yeah, I try to be everywhere I can be to be that one guy who's always shouting for animals and for nature.
Rick, thank you so much. It has been absolutely delightful to have you on, and we'll talk to you later.
Well, thanks for having me. It's absolutely been a pleasure.
Bye. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope this episode has wrapped its prehensile tale around your heart. If you liked what you heard, I would love it if you left behind some kind words for us in a review on your podcast app of choice. If you want to come hang out with us online, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, Blue Sky. Links to everything will be in the episode description. You can also send me an email at ellen@justthezooofus.com if you have a cool animal you'd like to hear us talk about on the show. We would like to thank Maximum Fun for having us on their network alongside their other artist-owned and listener-supported shows. You can go check those out and support our content over at MaximumFun.org. Finally, we'd like to thank Louis Zong for our theme music. That's all for today. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
supported
directly
by you.